And on today's show, why life insurance can be an option to a 401k. Part 2 of this week's series on life insurance income strategies with life insurance income strategist Don Prehn, CLU CHFC. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to InsMark, Life Specs, and backroom technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to the show, Don.
Hey, Steve.
Don, this is a big debate out in our world, as you well know. Should I use a qualified plan like a 401k, or should I use a non-deductible, non-qualified life insurance policy? In this case, we're using Index UL. Why don't you walk us through the basic thing of, well, let's just talk about this basic client and tell what the statistics are, and then we'll walk through and see the mechanics.
Sounds good. So here we have a client, Joe Tanner, age 35. He's currently making contributions to his 401k plan of $17,500. And the first $2,500 of that $17,500 is being matched by his employer. He's in a 30% tax bracket. And so the question that we wanted to look at was, I think we would all agree that on the $2,500 that's being matched, that we would always recommend that he continue to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So really the question is, on the other $15,000, so he's contributing $17,500, there's $2,500 of that that's being matched. Then on the remaining $15,000 that he's contributing that's not being matched, the question is that the best place for him for that money? Mm-hmm. And so what we did was we said, okay, if you're putting $15,000 into a deductible plan and a 30% tax bracket, the after-tax cost of that, because you get a tax benefit, is $10,500. And so let's just click over and take a look at this comparison where we said, okay, the $15,000 is going into the 401k. The equivalent amount of money that could go into the cash value life insurance policy is $10,500, again at a 30% tax bracket. And we wanted to see, okay, if we assume 7.5% on both the 401k and also the cash value life insurance policy, here's how the values would grow out to age 65. So with his 401k, he's got about $950,000, and with we have a $10,500 30 pay, $315,000 increasing death benefit. The policy cash value grows to about $1 million. So we actually at retirement have about the same amount of money in both plans. But then look, here's what's the interesting point. Starting at retirement, when you start taking money out of that 401k, it's going to be taxable. So here are the loans that we took, tax-free loans out of the life insurance policy. And to get the same amount of money, they had to gross up the distributions from the 401k. So what happens is it actually drives the 401k balance to zero by age 78, and the life insurance policy with these tax-free loans goes out all the way out to age, well, the year 60, age 94.
Don, can I make sure I understood you correctly?
Please.
Are you saying that we were behind the 8 ball because we didn't get the deduction like they did? So we were behind the 8 ball, $4,500. They were investing $15,000. We were only investing $10,500.
Yes.
So this is pretty dramatic when you think about comparing it this way, because really, how did we catch up? Right? Usually people are going to ask that question.
Sure.
The second thing I want to make sure we're on is, if I didn't gross up the actual money coming out of the 401k, and I just said, instead of matching it, just pay it as long as you can, figure out what the income stream is, that number would be below our distribution level, so low after tax. So even if I didn't take out the match, and I just said, make it last till 85, 90. It's going to be so small compared to what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. You can either try to match the income from the policy, in which case you're going to drive it to zero in the late 70s, way before our policy cash values will even approach zero. Or you could significantly reduce your income from the 401k and have it last as long as ours, but either way it's worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Another point here too, remember, all this money that we've talked about in other shows is your Social Security. This income is includable in your provisional income test for Social Security. Yeah. So your Social Security your benefits are probably being taxed on this, whereas policy loans of gain with a contract held in force for the life of the insured, that will never cause an issue. In fact, it never shows up on a Social Security provisional income test.
Yeah, this is such a huge point, and that is that people look at 401ks and qualified plans as sort of always the right thing to do. And it really depends on the client's tax bracket.
We come back from the break. We're going to continue our analysis on 401ks with IULs. I think you're going to find this fascinating. It's all about the math. It's all about logic. We'll be right back. Well, welcome to the second segment. We're, of course, with Don Prehn. Don, you are a life insurance income strategist and specialist. I have to say, this story is really great. I got a guy that's already topping out. He's giving max contributions to his 401k. You asked the client, would you put in more into your 401k if you could? And he said yes, up to $50,000 above what he's already doing. And you said, well, let me show you something then. Walk us through this, because this is where we're talking about affluent America, people who really have some money. They're maxing out their 401k contributions. This idea is huge, and it'll get you in front of a lot of what I would call uber wealthy clients.
Yeah, here in this case, this client's David Wolf, and the idea was if you could put more in your 401k, would you? Because in this case, David Wolf is already maximizing, he's already put all he can put in. And Mr. Wolf said, well, so if I could put more in, would I? Yeah, of course I would. And the question was, well, how much more would you put in if there was no limit? And he said, well, I'd probably put $50,000 a year in addition to what I'm already contributing now. So we said, okay, we'd like to come back with an analysis of that and kind of show you some different alternatives. And here you'll see Mr. Olson, a 40% tax bracket. So if you put $50,000 into his 401k, the after-tax cost of that to him in a 40% effective tax bracket is $30,000. And so contributing that $50,000 to the 401k, assuming a 7.5% yield, would grow over the next 30 years to, you can see how it's growing here, and then we start taking income out. That same $30,000 a year, the after-tax cost of the extra $50,000 in the 401k, we're showing going into the cash value life insurance policy, and then starting at retirement, age 65, we start taking $33,000 a year out, increasing from both plans. Now remember, with this 401k, that's all going to be taxable, so you got to take more than the $33,000 out to have that net, and we get that net from the policy through the tax-free loans. So here you can see through year 30, and the accounts are pretty close, around $300,000, but let's look and see what happens in the next few years, starting at age 75, and you can see that this 401k plan gets driven to zero by, I think, age 82, Steve?
Yeah.
And look what's happening with the life insurance policy. The income coming out is still going strong all the way out to age 99.
Yeah, this is amazing, because if he could put $50,000, we'd almost be able to argue it still doesn't work. Even if you had $50,000 to put into your 401k, I'm not sure the math supports it.
Yeah, and we may have an alternative that is even better than if you could put the money in the 401k, which you can't, but if you could, we have something that we can show would be a better alternative for you, which is a very compelling idea for where he can put some of his money for his overall retirement and wealth planning. So this is kind of an interesting graph that sort of says everything in sort of at a glance. And here what you have is both plans have an after-tax cost of $150,000, $30,000 a year for 5 years. The 401k pays out $771,000 of income before it runs out of gas. The cash value policy pays $1.9 million, so that's a big increase. Also, the 401k plan depletes. Our plan, even out at age 99, still has cash value over $500,000 and death benefit over $500,000. And let's show a couple other portrayals. This shows you, this is an interesting graph that shows you the difference in income. Again, with the cash value policy, $1.9 million of income. With the 401k, only $771,000, which then, if we look at the last, thank you, Steve, this shows based on that income coming out, here's what happens with the plan. And look what happens with that 401k as it dives to zero here out at year 35. And our plan is still, see that green line, and the blue is the death benefit. Our plan is still kind of percolating around that $500,000 mark, even with all of that income coming out of the policy.
Yeah, taxation is really a huge erosion when you're talking about retirement income. And this graph really shows the kind of tax hit that a client is going to have to endure. And this is why the 401k, even if it matched the 7.5% return, it's going to not have enough money, and it won't have enough staying power, especially if we're withdrawing the same amount as we are with the life insurance. And this is why we're looking at these things. Even in the 40% tax bracket, I'm going to look at this. Doesn't mean I'd still do the 401k on the match for sure, but I want to always look at the comparison. And here's a perfect example. So if you have clients that are over the top on their contributions, they're capped out, they're at the top end of their 401k contribution, I'm looking at this as another alternative, and it's a great one. And again, keep in mind, Social Security, none of the loans coming off of this is causing Social Security taxation.
Yeah, imagine how much you could do with clients if you were the only guy in the country that could go out and allow up to another $50,000 in any of their qualified plans. How much business could you write? And we arguably have a plan that's better than if you were able to offer that.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer.